This is episode 51, and today we're talking about fashion and fashion law. What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in. Today we're talking about fashion. Fashion has always been with us and will always be with us. And as the economy swings up and down, the fashion industry is affected as well. As we just saw, J. Crew, one of the largest fashion retailers, just filed for bankruptcy. And we talk about bankruptcy somewhat frequently. And the bankruptcy they filed is Chapter 11. There are primarily four types of bankruptcy. There's Chapter 7, Chapter 11, Chapter 12, and Chapter 13. And if you're a big company, you're going to file with Chapter 11. Now, it's important to understand that Chapter 11 doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to just wipe out the entire business. What happened is in Chapter 11, they renegotiate the contracts. And that's exactly what they did with J. Crew. They renegotiated the contracts. And primarily, J. Crew had $1.7 billion of debt. When the new company bought J. Crew a few years ago, they used a leverage buyout. I got a whole video dedicated to leverage buyouts. But in essence, the leverage buyout is you would use a lot of debt to buy a business and then use the cash flow of the business to pay off the debt. So you use a lot of debt to pay off a business with a lot of cash flow. And J. Crew has over 400 stores, so they're making a lot of cash. And so, but they had a lot of debt. And the problem is that when you have a leverage buyout and you have a lot of debt on the business and you don't have enough time to pay off the debt using the cash flow, you can potentially end up in things like bankruptcy. And that's exactly what happened. Primarily because J. Crew didn't necessarily keep up with the latest trends. A lot of the young kids don't necessarily think of going to J. Crew to buy the latest trendy outfits and things such as that. They go to H&M or other fast forward types of clothing companies. And a company like J. Crew ended up in bankruptcy. But with that, they're able to negotiate that and turn that debt into equity. So now they're own a part of J. Crew. Also, a company like J. Crew may file for Chapter 11, but small businesses, which are the majority of businesses, they may have to file Chapter 13 and Chapter 7. If you don't have any money coming in, you may file for Chapter 7. But if you have some stream of revenue coming in, you may file for Chapter 13, which will help you pay up your debts between roughly 3 to 5 years. So that's important. But also, let's just talk about fashion as a whole. Fashion is still a great time to be in the fashion industry. Individuals want fashion. They want the latest thing. They want the trendy thing. And fashion changes every single decade. Every 5 years, fashion changes. So this is a great opportunity to get into fashion. And let's talk about some of the fundamentals of a legal structure of fashion. When you start a fashion house, a fashion company, you can create an LLC. That's primarily in the U.S. If you're in another country, you may want to use the private limited company. That's similar to the LLC, but a lot of other countries call it that. But so you create an LLC. You create an EIN number, which is your tax ID number. That's free for the IRS. The LLC can be created on the Secretary of State's website. So Google Secretary of State's website where you want to start your LLC. It can be if you're in Georgia, Google the Georgia Secretary of State's website and find out how to create an LLC. New York, same way. I mean, it goes on and on and on. In New York, a lot of people do S corps, but for fashion, primarily the LLC is probably the preferred legal entity. And with those two documents, the EIN number and your LLC, you can typically go to a bank and open up a business bank account. So now you pretty much are somewhat set for the most part, at least somewhat of a fundamental aspect from a fashion standpoint. But if you want to have a fancy address, you can get you a virtual address. For example, if you want to have a presence in a lot of the fashion locations, New York, London, Paris, Milan, places like that. These are some of the places where the premier fashion brands are. You can create your virtual address in those places. You can just Google virtual address Milan, Italy, or Paris, France, or New York, New York, and you can create your virtual address. So you can have a presence there, have a professional outlook, a professional presence from that standpoint. So, but that's just the legal aspect of it. But it's also important to know that there is a lot of room for up-and-coming fashion artists. So you can have a legal strategy, legal structure that's been created. And then in addition, you can learn how to cut and sew. I'm a proponent of learning a fashion artist learn how to cut and sew. Because anyone can put a logo on a t-shirt. I put a logo on a t-shirt and I can sell it. It doesn't necessarily mean I have a fashion house. But what's going to separate you from just everyone is learning how to cut and sew. Learning how to create your ideas and put it on paper. You can take classes to teach you how to cut and sew. You can learn some videos on YouTube. You can make dresses, you can make purses, you can make suits, you can make shoes. I know there's a lot of factories as far as when it comes to shoes are in Mexico. So if you're from a US perspective, it's not too far. You can actually go to those factories and get your shoes made. You can also be a stylist, and you can style individuals. You can style some celebrities if you somehow get good enough to do that. And one way to do that is having a social media presence. I mean, if you're into really any industry, you must have a social media presence, or you're really not really relevant in some respects. So you know how to you can have a triple combo. You can be a stylist. You can make the clothes, and you can also give them a photo shoot, and that can pretty much be done really anywhere in the world, because everyone wants to have what they call fly clothes. Individual will post your things on social media, and then you better give them a one-of-one. And everyone likes custom. Everyone likes fit. It's not necessarily a brand-oriented thing when it comes to fashion as it once was. Individuals like how things fit, so that's important. So learning how to cut and sew that is very important. You can take classes. You can take classes at different fashion workshops across the country. You can watch videos. You can buy fashion books. You can learn how to do these things, and I charge individuals prices for cutting and sew. So that's very important. Also, when it comes to fashion, from a legal perspective, intellectual property is a big part of fashion, particularly logos, trademarks. If you saw anything about Kanye West, we just found out that he was a billionaire. And one of the ways he became a billionaire is through the Yeezy brand. He has the shoes, but Kanye West owns the Yeezy brand. He owns the Yeezy intellectual property. He owns the logo, 100% of it. So he was able to license that to Nike, and then once his contract ended with Nike, he just left and went to Adidas. He brought the entire Yeezy brand over to Adidas, and that's important. Understanding the importance of trademarks, understanding the importance of logos and intellectual property, because he gets a royalty of that from Adidas. Adidas makes the shoes, and they get the majority of the money, but he gets a royalty from that. And with that, he now is a billionaire because they gave it a multiple. They used that his royalties from the Yeezys, Adidas, and then also some of the land he has, also some of his music royalties, and they would give it a multiple. And with that, he became a billionaire. Also, Virgil Abloh did the same thing. He owns the intellectual property for Off-White. That's also important. So he's getting royalties from that. So, but it's also important to know that when you're dealing with a fashion house and dealing with a fashion brand, you may not necessarily want to name your fashion brand after yourself. Even though it's a common strategy, you see things like Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, you see things like that. But if you ever decide to sell your fashion company, you may lose rights to use your name, particularly in the realm of fashion. And for example, Tommy Hilfiger, he lost his name when he sold parts of the company. Joseph Abode, and the list goes on and on and on. So while it's important to know that you are putting your blood, sweat, and tears into your brand, and individuals want to have some fame with that by naming it after themselves, because that becomes a piece of them, you may lose rights to it from a legal perspective if you ever decide to sell it. Also, some legal aspects is that you can create your website and create direct to consumer. You can copyright your website. If you're doing videos, a lot of fashion in many ways is about lifestyle, so you have to show the lifestyle. And one way to do that is through pictures and videos. You can copyright those individual videos and pictures, and that's important. So there's a lot to do in fashion, and we talked about a lot in this video. We talked about bankruptcy. We talked about the legal structure of creating a fashion house. We talked about intellectual property when it comes to trademarks and copyrights, websites, direct to consumer. We talked about a lot in this video, and I hope you all have enjoyed it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we're one step closer to 1,000 episodes. Thanks.
See, you want the fame and I want the chain. We ain't got the same focus. I came in the game with my